Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Scary Story channel. Today I've got a story for you that blurs the line between urban legend and a chilling personal account. It's about a place that shouldn't exist, a place whispered about in the shadowed corners of old buildings. It's about the secret corridor. My story begins with a man named Leo, a night security guard at a sprawling old university library. The building was a labyrinth of stone and glass, built in the early 20th century, with wings and annexes added on over the decades like mismatched limbs. Leo's job was simple: walk the designated routes, check the doors, and make sure no one was left inside after closing. The silence of the library at night was profound, a heavy blanket that swallowed every sound. The only company he had was the creak of the floorboards and the hum of the old fluorescent lights. For the first few months, the job was mundane. The biggest excitement was finding a forgotten backpack or a half-eaten sandwich. But Leo started to notice little things. A book inexplicably on the floor in a section he had just checked. A faint scent of ozone in the air, like after a lightning strike that would vanish as quickly as it appeared. He brushed it all off, as his imagination playing tricks on him in the vast emptiness. He was a practical man, not one for ghost stories. One night, while doing his rounds in the oldest section of the library, the historical archives, he felt a strange draft. The archives were in the basement, a windowless, climate-controlled vault. There shouldn't be any drafts. He checked the vents, the seals on the heavy fire door. Everything was secure. Yet the cold air persisted, smelling faintly of damp earth and something else. Something metallic and vaguely sweet, like old pennies. He traced the source of the draft to a long, unremarkable wall lined with towering metal shelves. As his hand skimmed the cold, painted brick, he felt it. A slight indentation, a seam almost invisible in the dim light. His heart began to thump a slow, heavy rhythm against his ribs. He pushed, and for a moment, nothing happened. He pushed again, harder this time, putting his shoulder into it. With a low groan of rusted metal and grinding stone, a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow, dark passageway, the secret corridor. It wasn't on any blueprint Leo had ever seen. The air that billowed out was colder still, carrying that strange, earthy scent. His training screamed at him to close the door, report it, and wait for morning. But a powerful, almost compulsive curiosity took hold. He had a powerful flashlight, a two-way radio clipped to his belt. What could possibly be in there? An old maintenance tunnel? A forgotten storage space? Taking a deep breath, he stepped through. The heavy door swung shut behind him with a final, echoing boom, plunging him into absolute darkness. He fumbled for his flashlight, his hand shaking slightly. He clicked it on, and the powerful beam cut a brilliant white cone through the oppressive black. The corridor was tight, barely wider than his shoulders. The walls were rough, unpainted brick, slick with a thin layer of moisture. The floor was uneven stone, and the ceiling was low, with thick, ancient-looking pipes running its length, weeping droplets of dark water that splattered on the floor with an unnerving rhythm. He started walking. The corridor seemed to stretch on indefinitely, curving slightly to the left. The silence here was different from the libraries. It was a dead silence, a vacuum that seemed to press in on his eardrums. The only sound was the scuff of his own boots and the steady drip, drip, drip from the pipes above. After what felt like 10 minutes of walking, he started to get nervous. He tried his radio. "This is Leo. Calling base. Do you copy?" Static. He tried again. Nothing but a hiss. He was alone. The metallic smell was stronger now. He rounded another bend, and his flashlight beam landed on something that made him freeze. Scrawled on the brick wall in what looked like rust, or perhaps dried blood, were words. Simple, frantic-looking letters. "Don't look back." A cold dread washed over him. His first instinct was to whip his head around, to see what was behind him, but the warning was so stark, so primal that it paralyzed him. He stood there, his back to the long, dark stretch of corridor he had just walked, his heart hammering against his chest. He forced himself to keep moving forward, his eyes locked on the path ahead, the flashlight beam trembling. A few yards later, there was another message. It sees you. Now raw panic began to set in. What saw him? He swept the beam of his light around the corridor in front of him, but there was nothing. Just the endless damp brick and the weeping pipes. He started walking faster, his breaths coming in short, ragged gasps. He could feel it now, a presence, a heavy, watchful stillness in the air behind him. It was an irrational feeling, but it was overwhelming. The corridor began to change. The smooth brick gave way to rough-hewn stone, as if he were walking deeper into the earth, further back in time. The air grew colder, and the dripping from the pipes sounded less like water and more like a thick, viscous fluid. Then he saw the third message, scrawled larger and more desperately than the others. It's getting closer. He broke into a run. He didn't care how irrational it was. He ran, stumbling on the uneven floor, his flashlight beam bouncing wildly, creating a chaotic dance of light and shadow. He could hear something now, a faint sound over his own frantic footsteps and panicked breathing. A soft, wet, shuffling noise. It was behind him. It was keeping pace. He didn't dare look back. The warning was seared into his mind. He just ran, his lungs burning, his legs aching. The shuffling grew louder, closer. It was a dragging sound, like something heavy and wet being pulled across the stone floor. He risked a glance at the wall beside him, and in the flickering light of his flashlight, his shadow was wrong. It was distorted, elongated, and behind it, a second shadow was rising, a shape that was impossibly tall and thin, with limbs that bent at unnatural angles. He screamed, a raw, terrified sound that was swallowed by the suffocating silence of the corridor. He pushed himself harder, fueled by pure adrenaline. Up ahead, he saw a faint light, not his flashlight, a dim, grey light filtering in from above. A grate! He scrambled towards it, the shuffling sound right behind him now, so close he could feel a cold breath on the back of his neck. He reached the grate and threw his weight against it. It was heavy, crusted with rust and grime. He pushed again, roaring with effort and fear. It gave way with a screech of metal, and he tumbled out onto a cold, dirty floor, gasping for air. He was in a sub-basement, a part of the library he had never seen before, filled with discarded furniture and forgotten equipment. He scrambled to his feet, slammed the grate shut, and didn't stop running until he burst through a service door and found himself back in the familiar, brightly lit halls of the main library. He never told anyone the full story. He reported a possible structural issue in the archives, and the university sealed the wall permanently with concrete and steel. Leo quit his job the next day. He says he still has nightmares about that corridor. He never saw what was chasing him, but he knows, with a certainty that chills him to the bone, that it saw him. He says that sometimes when he's alone in a quiet room, he can still hear a faint, wet, shuffling sound getting closer. So if you ever find a door that isn't on the map, or a corridor that shouldn't exist, maybe it's best to leave it closed. Some places are secret for a reason. Some things are not meant to be found. Thanks for listening to our scary story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and remember to check behind you.